Audience, if you happen to have anyone younger than the age of 14 in the room listening to this podcast with you, please escort them out, as this is not a safe podcast for young people to listen to, just like episode 5 of Star Trek Picard. And on top of that, there's spoilers and speculation galore, like wild, crazy speculation. Starfleet Boy is nuts in this episode. Attend carefully. Thank you. All right, I just started the audio recording. We need to clap.
Okay.
Oh wait, I have to start the video. Shit, we're behind. Start the recording. Okay, Ruben, you're being recorded. All right, ready? Oh. And then I have to do. There we go. Now we're looking. We have to recenter ourselves. Yeah. All right, here we go. All right, 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. I don't hear. Oh, whoa! What a delay. 1, 2, 3, clap. Did you hear the delay between my clap? Oh, you don't hear it. There's no delay. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to pay attention to what the video is saying to me. It's saying there's a delay. Oh, it just caught up. That's amazing. All right. It's official right now. And we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. We are focused today on Star Trek Picard, another opening night episode of Starfleet Boy, where we just saw it fresh, or day of, should we call it?
Yeah, yep.
Day of. It could be daytime if you're in Australia right now. Janet just made a cameo appearance.
Yeah,
and,
you just made a cameo on the show.
It's like
Enjoy your ice cream cake.
we should have her on officially one time. It might be really fun. We should do it at a live recording at a restaurant or a park. We could go to a park or something. Like,
I think she'd be happy to be on
anyways,
on Starfleet Boy, non-Picard edition.
ooh. Well, we'll do her favorite show. All right, so cheers to another opening night. All right, so in honor of 7 of 9, that's a bourbon drink called the Manhattan Baby. So did I trick you? See, you're secretly on a drunk Picard episode of Starfleet Boy on opening night. Audience, if you didn't figure it out,
my serpent. What is it? Serpent weed or whatever? What is it? They call it
snake bite.
Snake leaf. Snake leaf.
Snake leaf. That's what it is. Your snake.
It's my snake leaf.
Ruben, I have to interrupt to tell you that your audio is coming in hot. That's what the system is telling me. Oh, but the ASMR audience is going to love the fact that you can hear you chewing. So you can either talk a lot less loud. No, I love it. I will try to see if
I
they'll allow me to
apologize
share
to
some of
her.
our correspondences. There it is. I intentionally record at a lower level on my end. I don't know if you can adjust your gain down, but if you have a setting on your computer, don't do it now though, because then it'll ruin my fancy schmancy.
I'll just try to control my volume.
Is Jurassic Park still on the table?
Yeah, absolutely. It's our safe word for those who don't know.
So I think we should still do a summary. and I think you should try again, and you should try to give this every. And I will use my I will exercise my veto, not veto. I don't have veto powers. Oh my God. Sorry, it's not a dictatorship
Well, it is your show, so it is dictatorship.
No. We're a democratic operation here on Starfleet Boy. If I were profitable, I would which I'm not. But as an entity, if I were profitable, I would reinvest the profits among the many volunteers who give thankless hours to this show, like yourself. You volunteer your knowledge and your time. So if nothing else, if you're hating Picard, which I think you are,
I wouldn't say
if
hate.
nothing else, it pleases me so much that oh, good, that makes me happy.
I've gotten to the point where I don't see it as a Star Trek show. It's just some random sci-fi show with characters with familiar names. That's all. And then I enjoy a little bit more though.
Drawn. Yeah, no further. Oh, I heard myself. That was amazing.
You like the sound of your own voice?
That made my. It's really trippy. I did something really awful. We watched the episode. Well, I watched the episode early in the morning myself. I go to bed early, so I still get my full 8. For those of you who are worried, I still get a full 8 hours of sleep at night. But I just go to bed like at 8 or 9. I wake up around 2:30. I watch this show.
Was it late for you? I heard it was late for. I heard it was released late for some people.
No, I don't know. There's like a little nice note. Like I just snooze if the note's not there, I'll just snooze. And my alarm is like very light, but I'm awake anyways because I'm too excited. I can't, it's the eve of Picard. It's the moment. I get to get it in the first drips of the dewdrops from the Picard tree come right into my mouth as I'm laying in.
Just you and the owls.
And this time I have to admit that opening scene woke me the fuck up. I was like, oh, this is not gonna be like anything I've ever seen on Star Trek before, and it wasn't. Do you know how crazy that scene is, like with the lore behind it? And you're Voyager? You're well versed in Voyager, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm actually more interested.
Well, that character.
I love Voyager, and I loved Icheb. Icheb was amazing, and it was horrific seeing him in an R-rated horror movie being torn apart on this bizarre science fiction show that does not know what it wants to be.
I didn't have that reaction to it because I don't know Icheb as a character. I only know the actor is very active on Twitter and had like a huge journey of like he fell from grace and redemption. I witnessed the whole thing because he followed me, and early on when I joined everyone, you just follow everyone on Twitter. You don't know.
Pretty much, yeah. Just go crazy. So was that the same actor?
I signed up for Twitter. No, it's not. The actor was recast, and there's like a whole controversy.
Oh, okay.
I hate to go here, but I guess we might as well report the news because it is the news. But there seems to be on Twitter, at least, I don't know how valid this is as a news source, but the vibe on Twitter is that a lot of people feel like, oh, he should have been that it should have been the same actor. And then there's an opposing force that seems almost equally as strong. That's like, no, that guy's an asshat and he should never be in Star Trek ever again. And it's
Wow.
like, I don't know, because he's always been pleasant to me, and that's not that's not something that I know that's a triggering phrase for a lot of people. Like, oh yeah, Hitler was nice to people too, but
he helped an old lady cross the street once. I'm sure.
Really hard. And he also tried really hard to atone publicly for his transgressions in that situation.
Wow. So I feel like I need to read into this because I don't know anything about this.
But yeah, it's a crazy thing. I don't know I don't know. It's like the Hushnak. I don't know if I can judge such a thing because I myself am a flawed person, and I've done things that I regret. So I'm not sure I'm willing to go there and like cast judgment on the actor. But as far as I'm concerned, for me, since I wasn't familiar with the character, I didn't have an attachment, and to me, it was just like horrific, fucking gross scene that like scared the shit out of me at three in
Oh
the
yeah, you don't
morning
need to
and
know the
woke me
character
the
for
F
that.
up so that I could pay attention. After
Well, I mean,
that, I was paying attention to everything that was going on. It was like total tuned in, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is crazy." Yeah. So that opening was nuts.
Icheb and
But
the
I did.
board Icheb and the board kids. There's a great episode of Voyager where Neelix is telling them like basically a ghost story on the ship, where because they have to for some reason they have to go to like minimal power to go through like a nebula or something. Yeah, this is yeah. It's a
Oh
super
wow.
cute like story when Star Trek used to be a family friendly show before it became dark and disturbing.
Oh no.
Before its
I
eyes
know.
were gouged
This
out
is
of
like
its
the
head.
I'm being I'm being so selfish here. I'm being so selfish here, but this is like the Star Trek that I need right now. Like this is serving every purpose I need. And I know it's selfish. Like I want Star Trek also to be family friendly. Don't get me wrong, but I'm enjoying the hell out of seeing like Star Trek be this way. Like to me, it's the best thing I've and to have Picard be dark like this is I'm the opposite because I'm enjoying everything they're doing. Like I think this is like so necessary just on a personal level for me. I'm being 100% selfish here. So it's like I know I wrote this on Twitter. It's like I don't know how I can critique the show because I take every single episode as like a like oh they made that for me. Like this is solving a problem in my life like something every episode gives me like is the answer to my problems that might relate to this episode to go and just kill them. No, I hope not. Like, but I'm an adult, so I don't have to. I've already been trained not to kill. It's very
Train not to go.
society did a good job. Society did a good job. But yeah, I agree 100%. I don't know how you could show it to a kid. I'd have to watch it supervised with my 15-year-old even. And if my 17-year-old or 18-year-old were watching the show, I'd check in with them and want to have similar. Actually, that would have been a great show if I actually fulfilled my family desires. I might be having this conversation with you and my son right now. Like 18-year-old child because I'm 40. Like that's around the right
Right.
age for, like an 18-year-old
Oh
if I
yeah.
started early, right? 18-year-old child, what do you think of this crazy ass episode of Picard? I raised you, I milked you with Next Generation as your nourishment, and I gave you history through the original series, and now I've brought you to this like crazy ass place. How are you feeling about it? It'd be great to have those conversations. I just went way off topic.
Hey
I just
man.
imagined myself a son or a daughter or a non-binary.
I mean, I told my
You
best friend today not to show it
know.
to his kids. He has an 8-year-old and a something 5-year-old or something, and I told him
But do you agree
don't
that
show
like
this to
is
your kids.
14 a good age?
What's that?
Is 14 or 15 a good age? Where do you think the line? Where do you
Well,
think
I was
the
a
line?
weirdo. I saw Halloween when I was 4 years old, and so nothing ever affected me after that. Um, but I mean, yeah, I would say Picard
You,
is PG
you know
13,
me. I was the guy.
a
I was the
PG
guy like
13
covering
show.
my eyes.
Right,
You knew me when I would cover my eyes when there was
right.
nudity on, which was totally acceptable in
Well, I'll never
in
forget you did it to the scene in Teen Wolf when the girls in the little negligee, and you were like, ah, and I was like, what?
I still do it as an adult. In Star Trek Discovery, we see the very first uh, Klingon breasts, like bare naked breasts, Klingon breasts. At least the Star Trek Discovery Klingons. I may not acknowledge those as Klingons,
It
but
hurts. It hurts my brain, man. It hurts my brain.
and you see the shadow of a Klingon penis against the wall. And we find out that what Worf has been hiding a secret this whole time, which is that Klingons have duplicate of everything, including their reproductive organs. So he actually has two dicks. Now we just made this rated R. So This is like I just failed. I'll try my best to bleep that out. But they have two anatomical, reproductive features, and so you actually see in Star Trek Discovery a Klingon urinating from two pee holes. Like you have to imagine the pee holes, but you actually see it. Yeah. So where were we on
You
the
just
summary?
can't.
We didn't get to
We
summary
haven't
yet.
started it. We haven't started the summary.
We
Well,
haven't
actually,
started.
no. Well, yeah. It starts off. We started off with the first 2 seconds, which is the eye gouging of Egypt. Uh, so yeah, Egypt gets his eye taken out by some mysterious person, who is then attacked by Seven of Nine. Right, that's Seven of Nine comes in.
Can I just spoil my spoiler that I was going to give you later on? Can we jump way later into the summary? What was her name? Beelzebub?
Bejazel. I wrote it down.
Bejesus. Bejazel.
I wrote that down
Bejazel.
too. Bejesus at one point.
Bejazel. No one does pilots anymore for spin-offs. We do the ending of a series nowadays. So Picard, we just witnessed in Picard. My theory is we just witnessed in the Picard the end of a 7 of 9 story arc that ends here, where she basically falls in love with Mirror Universe Deanna Troi, which is who this actor 100% looks like. And Bezazel is actually Mirror Universe Deanna Troi. She seduces 7 of 9, does this horrific plot to create the technology to get her back home to her mirror universe. And that's why she's like stripping Borgs for their parts. And so we witnessed the end where 7 of 9, after 7 seasons, 70 episodes, finally gets to her and shoots her and blows her up. Bezazel. Put that in your Bezazel and cook it.
Bezazel this.
What did you think of my idea for the whole 7 of 9 show?
I mean, that's my biggest takeaway from this episode is I wanted to see the 7 of 9 show. I'd rather see that story. It seems way more interesting.
Picard brought you to it, though. Come on, give it some credit. Give me some credit, number one.
Number one.
You can just enjoy it for a little while longer as I perform for you in many ways.
I'm
He was so
allowing
amazing
Alex Kurtzman to take a number 2 all over this show.
No,
All over the franchise.
that's not what's happening. It's like I think it's Brian Fuller tried to take a turn on Star Trek, but now Alex Kurtzman and I are polishing it. Look what you can do to a turd. You can clean it and make it pretty.
They shaped it into like a penguin.
How's that for them? No, I don't have anything against. I have nothing against neither Brian Fuller nor Alex Kurtzman. I don't know enough about them and their careers to make any kind of protective statements or admonishing statements about them. But I do know that Star Trek Discovery I like, Star Trek Picard I love. So they're hitting, they're hitting one kind of like, okay, I like this show, let's see where it's going, and they're hitting one that's like, oh my god, it's like I wake up at 3 a.m. every Thursday just to watch this, just to see what's gonna happen next. And you're like, oh my god, I hate this. Why do you hate? What did you hate the most about this episode? Let's do the hatred first.
The most?
The most. What was your biggest?
I mean, I have like a top 3 things that annoy me. I guess they'd have no budget for costumes.
You wrote it down?
No, yeah, I wrote notes.
Wait, what?
They have no budget for costumes. They just shop like at Old Navy and slap everybody into Old Navy outfits.
No, why would you? How could you get Bezazel's costume at Old Navy?
No, not Bezazel. I'm talking about the Captain Picard's little crew. The Rios, belt buckle, jeans, like.
You know that? Okay, when was the last time you went to Old Navy? Just curious, just out of
Well,
curiosity.
whatever fashion, you know what I'm talking about. Modern fashion. I wrote Kenneth Cole.
I think,
If that makes you happier.
I think that, I think that, but it's great. Why do you want spacesuits? You want everyone wearing spacesuits?
I want
You should make
an attempt
spacesuits.
at creating a future world. And then they go insane with Bazazel and they put her in this like gold. They just go insane.
The real future for humanity. The problem is that the real future for humanity is probably effed a little bit, because we're going to get close to the singularity, and then eventually all of us are just going to live in our devices and hope that like an asteroid doesn't hit the earth, or that the robots we create to care for us in our solid state uh don't, malfunction or start breaking the computers that we're all stuck in. So I think that's like that's going to be the real future. I mean, it will open up doorways to like abilities that the Jedi could not teach you. I don't know, some stupid
I mean,
thing like
I hope we end up like that planet. What was the name of the episode? The one where Wesley falls through the plants, and they're gonna put him to death for it, and everybody there's like basically naked. Yeah, like a poor kid falls through plants. They're gonna murder him for it. What the hell? That's the one with the space god thing.
Paradise. This is paradise, but we have to be crazy in some way.
Yeah. Everything's great here except.
Cheers to that. Everything's great here except. All right. Cheers to that.
So after the R-rated scene, we go to Maddox in the bar with Bajazel. We meet. I think that's the first time we meet Maddox, right?
Of the actor who played. Yeah, and what did you think of the actor who played Maddox?
He was fine. Crazy old scientist-looking guy.
Not the original actor either.
No, that for sure. I could tell.
Either, and a lot of people had like a uproar about that too. I thought it was a very interesting day on Twitter. I almost wish I hadn't. There's a curse to watching the episode so early, is that you're like, I don't care about spoilers anymore, because no one knows anything, past what you know now, right? But then you get to see all these strange conversations appear and disappear right before your eyes. I was actually wondering if it was the same actor. That's how long it's been since I've seen the actor who plays Maddox. But I found out today, and Twitter is also helpful.
Please don't tell me he's an asshole too.
Some interesting. No, I don't know. He might be.
The original Maddox killed a horse for fun. What?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. In Italy, they kill horses for food. I was offered horse meat in Italy, and I tried it, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't as bad as I imagined it would be. I did feel very sad that I ate a part of a horse. Like, I love horses in a companion way, not in a food source way, and it was like very very traumatizing. Maddox, apparently the original actor who played Maddox in TNG's Measure of a Man, not the man, although Data is the man. He is a professor, a teacher. He teaches, I think, theater or acting or something like that. And so this part's rumor, is that he may have been contacted and might have been like, I'm good. Deuces, thanks. Never gonna work with Patrick and Jonathan again after I got wasted that one night. No, that I made up. That was totally made up. That was me in a character doing a character. But yeah, that was what the internet said. So that's a new segment on Starfleet Boy. It's what did the internet say? Now you know. Now you know what the internet said.
What did the internet say?
What did it say?
You got to start making your graphics a little bumpers.
What did you see on YouTube today? Do you know what YouTube showed you today? It showed you Democratic debate from Las Vegas footage, and I thought it was aptly timed that this episode should take place in Space Las Vegas.
Space Vegas.
which is the next scene after the next scene the Picard and 7 of 9 download at Chateau
Yeah,
Picard, right?
this
After
yeah,
the opening credits.
yeah,
And that's
because
a great scene. I was really chuffed. There's a delay, so I was waiting for you to tell me what you thought.
oh, I don't know, just a scene.
Are you a fan of Jerry Ryan?
Yeah, yeah. I'm a fan of 709. I wish they would bring her on the show, but they brought in this character and called her 709. To me, she's acting totally like
What?
she's acting way too
Oh wow!
normal. But it has been 20 years, so
You
maybe
don't think
she's
she could have,
become more
you don't?
human. So
Oh, okay, gotcha.
right, right.
You accept that
I don't
possibility?
know how I feel about the sass and the very much non-Borgness of her character. But like I said,
And
it's,
also the fact that she's not afraid. And now, do you think she embraced like Starfleet? Was she going to be in Starfleet at the end of Voyager? I don't know. Or was she going to be independent?
I'm actually trying to remember. I was trying to remember where her.
Should we do research and find out? Should I look it
Yeah,
up?
trying to remember where she ended up at the last episode of Voyager because she was never technically Starfleet, but I'm pretty sure she was gonna join Starfleet because that's when Star Trek used to have
Is
hope
there like,
and was positive and didn't rip people's eyes
oh
out
my
in the
god,
first minute of an episode.
you're so off. We're so opposite. We're so opposite. It's so weird. I grew
Yeah,
up with you. You're the same. You're like my brother. I don't know understand what's happening here to us. How did you become this person that's so far away from me? What is going?
that
You are my
expands though.
brother.
Let me tell you.
That is a great
Uh,
show, isn't it?
it is.
I
Well, when
think
I,
that this episode, okay, so they're on the ship. You didn't like that scene where they're like the downloads happening, and then Rios and Rafi are like exchanging information and kind of helping people who don't know a lot about Star Trek like tune into some interesting facts, like when or even just like a refresher. He's like, "Oh, I forgot that Picard was a Borg. How quaint that I blocked it out." And I was like, "Oh, I can relate to that because I totally block out that he was ever a Borg all the time." Like it's like something that like I think the character wants to block out. So it's kind of an interesting observation from Rios, and I liked it because it was like it reminded me of how like the show, is that what you would call an exposition bomb? Because I love it. If it was a bomb, that
no,
exploded.
not the.
And
I didn't make. I remember the moment you're talking about that little conversation with him and Raffi, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No,
And he's
no,
like, "What
because
have
it
you got
doesn't.
me into? You have me."
It was a little piece of information in naturally layered into dialogue, as opposed to a bombardment
So
of
you like that?
information. Yeah, I was fine with it.
Oh,
I
cool.
mean, it is.
All
I
right.
mean,
So then that happened.
In Picard's case, it is pretty easy to forget he's Borg too, because there's nothing external. He only kept, I think, the Borg penis implant. That's the only thing Beverly didn't take off.
Oh yes, I
That,
use this penis implant. How about that character we meet later on? The real Jean-Luc Picard, the French, the former French assassin with an eye patch. We got the
I,
real Picard.
I don't
That is
know.
how
I don't
he
know
hid
what the.
he hid the true way that he talks the whole time he was on the Enterprise. At the end of the show, he would go into his quarters and be like, "Ah, I did it again. I convinced them I am English." Oh my god, all my French friends and audience just instantly hit the unsubscribe button. I apologize so much.
Your viewers just went.
Starfleet was never going to be on Star Trek. He did that French impression that one time. Oh my god! Don't put him on Star Trek. I want to be on Star Trek so bad. I want to get killed on Star Trek so bad. It'd be so amazing. Or just do coffee for Star Trek. Like anything. I feel
Just
like
copy.
it, it's just coffee. Or I could just show up and like wear my full Picard regalia and just like walk around the set reminding people how great the show is. Look at what you're a part of. Do you realize what you're a part of? You're a part of Star Trek Picard. It's a singular event. It's the last Star Trek event of a generation.
They
It's
should
wonderful.
write you in as some sort of weird meta character who time travels from our time and is stuck now in Picard's ship.
But as we
So
established before, played by PewDiePie. I think PewDiePie should play Starfleet Boy. That should be the character that PewDiePie plays. It would be an amazing cameo.
why not Logan Paul?
It would be like no, no, it should be PewDiePie. PewDiePie, there's hope for PewDiePie. Oh my goodness.
And then what do we get? Oh, there's that moment where Agnes, right? It's
And
Agnes Girardi.
yeah, Aggie, as we get, where
She's watching,
she's
yeah,
watching videos of
where the guy doesn't like replicated cookies, so he's making cookies out of replicated materials.
yeah, like all the parts are replicated. Yeah, he was like, I liked it. I think I think it's gonna okay. So I talked about this with my sister. So where do you think? Let's talk about Soji for a second. Let's just skip ahead for a second. She was not. She was conspicuously absent from this episode. The episode the whole time just stayed on the adventures of Jean-Luc and company. So we didn't get any updates from the board. We didn't get any updates from the Borg cube this episode, but we do find out that Soji. It's confirmed that Soji and Daj were created by Maddox. That Maddox programmed Daj to find Jean-Luc if she were in danger, and so he, he was like, okay, so that means she's dead. And Jean-Luc is like, is there a twin? Because he knew about the whole positronic replication process, which I don't remember the specific techno babble for, but and he says, yeah, her name's Soji, and he's Soji, and she's on where have you sent her? And he's like, oh, she's on the artifact. So now Jean-Luc knows where she is, and he's got his mission, so it's great. But I wonder, he said something else about like there's something going on. There's like a kind of a plot against the Federation as we know it from within the Federation itself, and with the Romulan Tal Shiar. And he sent both Daj and Soji as reconnaissance droids, or androids, I should say, but they're beautifully designed. I mean, they're like perfect Soong type androids, going even a step further, even than Data, and I would say closer to his mother. We've already talked about that, right? So he sends these out as reconnaissance droids, and they're gathering information about something. So they're now, I feel like there's like something really interesting happening here, where I like it. I like that it's like, possibly a Tal Shiar plot to like take advantage of the fact that, like, the Federation are weak now and take over the Federation. I don't know. It could be a thing. There will never be a better time, Ruben, as Romulan ambassador
He
Nonco
sends he sends
gives
the
advice
truth.
in Star Trek 6.
He sends the two perfect super androids out. One of them's on a date, and the other one has a 9 to 5 job on a board cube. Great job, Maddox. Great job.
One of them is one of them is totally DTF, which I find very strange that Maddox would design that attribute into Soji.
I think there's 3 of them, and he kept one.
I think it's not Data's, even though Data's the type of like personality, especially earlier on, where like if Maddox was, will you ship one of your positronic neurons to me so I can examine it? And he would be like, here's one that's not used yet. Like a blank one or something. Like I don't know, or like a low level. Like he gives away memories of the colony or something. He's like, here. But what I think would be more interesting is he says at the end, as he's before his surprise death scene, which I was surprised about. I did not expect him to die. I did not expect the whole Agnes reveal.
Well, I thought
He
Maddox died in
also
the beginning when he was poisoned.
yeah, I thought when he had the Tranya. Do you know what the Tranya is? By the way, it's a drink. The drink that she offers him, the Tranya, the yellow kind of fluorescent drink, is from the very first episode with Clint Howard in the original series when he plays the little alien that's inside that gigantic ship. And he
Come,
goes,
drink.
"Here, drink some Tranya." It's like So that's Tranya, and so now
I didn't
I'm
catch that.
obligé. I don't know if he listens, but I'm obligé. I'm obligé now to give a shout out to Master Wayne Donnelly, who I call Master Wayne, like Jedi Master, but also like Batman, because I think he is
Right.
Batman in real life. Who pointed that out like many years ago at my job in Seattle, and he was like, "Hey." He knows the line like exactly, and he's like, there's this like Rachel ginger beer, which is like that same color, and he said the line exactly, and I was like, oh my god, Star Trek. He's like, I just know that. He wouldn't admit to more, but I feel like there was. That's a pretty cool thing to know, and I wouldn't have known it had it not been for that. So cheers to Master Wayne. But there was that, and then there was Quark, who was mentioned. Did you catch that?
Oh, I didn't catch that either. When did they mention him in that scene too?
Oh man. Yeah, so in the scene where Rios beams down and first meets the reptilioid guy, the bouncer, who looked like he was from Dick Tracy. I loved him because he reminded me of the characters in Dick Tracy, like that kind of.
He did have very Dick Tracy-ish. And he can smell lies.
Again.
Okay.
It's
sure.
Awesome. I think it's like his species has created this BS thing about being able to smell lies just so they get employed as like these like
it's like that, like the guy who plays the game that his species is famous for strategy, but no one's ever fought him in a war.
Right. It's true. They don't really know that stuff. They just like have convinced everyone that they're famous. Stratagem. I am a genius at stratagem.
You can never beat me, Mr. Data.
Why do we do that same voice like Jean-Luc Picard without the French accent every time we do villains?
I'm doing this over the top character for no reason.
I think this is going to be controversial, but I feel like Bruce Maddox to me in the original series was like the closest thing that you get to a villain. Like I actually had a little bit of like kind of that pity you have for like an evil person dying when he died, because I actually thought like, how stupid can you be to not see that Data is like a unique like life form? But from his perspective, Data was like, we can just manufacture as many as we want and use them to help humanity, like, or
right.
not. Well, I don't even know if he says humanity, but he says the Federation. He's like, he wants to create basically, and I'll put it into like words of my own, but an army of supermen to like do all the work that
super slaves, really.
And that's what happens. Like if you think about it, synths are treated like shit. I think that ex-Borgs are considered synths in this world of this new world of Star Trek that we,
I thought it would have been interesting if Maddox's character, one of his motivations now was to create Data's as kind of a egotistical thing. He wanted to create a new species, not of slaves, but of Datas with personalities and individuality, like a new Borg.
Well,
a good Borg in a way.
At the end, he mentions when Like a good Dalek. Um, I think. By the way, today is February 20th, so a huge. I don't know if he's made it this far, but I know he starts to listen to these. A huge shout out to the doctor whose birthday it is today. So he has turned
Oh,
45 today, which I don't know if I should
wow.
be saying his age. I don't know if he cares. So this is going to be my 42nd year on this planet, my 42nd revolution around the sun. But the reason I brought that up is because he doesn't like, if I recall correctly, one of the arguments we have on our repeated discussions is that he doesn't like the Borg. One thing he didn't like about Hugh was like he wants the Borg to just stay the big bad. He doesn't want this whole like rehabilitation. Like it's not interesting to him. He likes his fantasy to be completely fantasy, and once it crosses the line into like, okay, now it's like I have to think about this in a way that like relates to actual humanity. I'm now just faced with looking at a mirror of like actual humanity, which is depressing and sad, and you know, like whatever. So that's my impression of what his argument is, and I just love it because I love a mirror. I'm a good I'm a good look into the mirror kind of person, you know.
So
Alice in
he doesn't
Wonderland.
like the evolution of the Borg, basically, over the course of the show. How they've gone from pure
He just doesn't like that. He doesn't like that. Yeah, a character that bad could just like find redemption, you know,
right,
through like a character, meaning the Borg as a collective is a character in and of itself.
right,
If you think,
right. Well, because I don't know how much. Because I mean, I love the stuff. I love 709, for instance, as a character, and I love her journey. Basically more in depth Hugh, where they studied the transition
right.
from
I'll
going
stop.
from
I'll stop speaking for the doctor because I know that'll piss him off. But I will say that I will say
good idea.
that I will say that for me, yeah, for me, I think I asked him and he said like he was okay with the 7 of 9 character, like he liked her, if like it was more on the like side than the annoyed side or something like that. So
Right,
if
right.
I get that right, and so
I mean,
I
on
know that.
Picard, I just really don't understand what they're doing. They're just technology, basically. So it's still not entirely clear what's happening with the Borg in this series, because right as of right now, they're just old drones being recovered for
Well,
either technology or to be saved and then put in a loony bin. But only the Romulans. Whatever,
so So
whatever.
whatever's happening to Ichib. Were you happy, by the way? It wasn't 14 years ago, it was 13 years ago. You know, the production team heard you complain about that on the last Starfleet Boy, and we're like, oh, let's change it to 13 years so that guy has nothing else to complain about.
They
I
love
like
their
the
they love
13
their
years bit.
flashback
I noticed
opening. That's for
because of
sure.
I love that stuff, but I also loved it especially because it was number 13, and this was definitely like the horror genre episode. If you like had to genreify this episode, like to me, it felt like they went full ham on the horror, like from Ichabod to like blowing up Mirror Universe Deanna Troy to like, I mean, she like disintegrates and there's like a poof of red like matter, which
Right.
you it's like it's, then 7 of 9 takes a deep sniff. I knew I'd smell you one last time before I killed you. I always knew you were Mirror Diana Troy, but there can be only one Deanna Troy, and she's on Betazoid with Riker and my niece. I don't know. I, I really
The
love.
well, I mean, yeah, those two bits were horror, and then Picard's
And
character was comedy.
then you had Girardi's psychotic. You had Girardi's psychotic break, which is another form of horror, like like a psycho thriller horror, right? Because that was making me nervous the whole time I was watching it. Was her nervousness, like how she would have these panic attacks. I remember the emergency medical hologram is like, "What's your psychological emergency? Like your heart rate's, you're having all these things. You're having like a panic attack," and she shuts him off and she like calms down. So then later during the Maddox thing, she goes crazy. Like I love the actor Alison Pill, because she went from like someone I wanted to trust so hard, like someone who I was like, oh, she's got to be a good character. She loves Jean-Luc. She's like, she was so interested. She's like all the sciencey good stuff that we love about Star Trek. She was the shining light of all that. She was like interesting in that way. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh, they got to her. Something happened, and she confesses, and she's like nuts, and her face is contorting, and she's like, one more thing. When he credits her, he's like, it was Soong, me, and you who created Dodge and Soji. And she's like, oh, one more thing I have to atone for. So she's like pissed, and she's like, I wish they never showed me what they showed me. So it's like, what did they show you? Like, was Maddox involved with Mirror Deanna Troi because he was taking Borg technology to create, like what you suggested earlier, to create Soji and Dodge?
Right.
So he's actually, if he's doing that, he's like a Dr. Mangala of sorts, because and that kind of is, I think, where that story might, I don't know, this is now in the, as we like to call it on Drunk Space Nine, we are in the Imaginina right now. We're just imagining things, and we're fully in my head and we're fully in my head canon. But you can on Drunk Space Nine. And audience, if you haven't heard Drunk Space Nine, you can go over there. But on Starfleet Boy, we're in head canon. We're in we're speculating here. But I don't know. I feel like that's where the direction of the show might go with that stuff. But I don't know. Anything could happen. And you're right, there was the comedic aspect of it, but I also thought that was, I guess you could put, Patrick Stewart's impression of a Frenchman in the horror category, because I love Patrick Stewart so much. I love him. I adore him. I cannot even think that he would seriously think that was a great French like character.
No, I think in his head, as he was doing the scene, he's like, do you know how much they're paying me to be on the show? I don't care.
And I'm saying, like, take here. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying, you know what I'm saying?
That's
why
they can't afford costumes, because they're paying him too much. So they got to shop at a baby.
They're not bad costumes. We totally different. Like, you know what I love about the costumes is I want to wear all the costumes.
you can without
totally
much,
a different reaction.
Without much trouble.
Ruben, I have a challenge for you, or Janet. I have a challenge for you and Janet. I'm putting it on the air right now. I want you to recreate a look from Picard from actual Target, and wear it on the next episode of Starfleet Boy. You have to like fully create a look.
So Hell is challenging us to create a look of Picard for me, and then I'll wear it on the next episode.
But
I loved Rios' outfit. Let me tell you, it was nice. But it was like, hey, maybe I'll go out and get that.
No, from Old Navy. You have to go. You can only go to Old Navy or Target. What did you say?
Navy,
Target, Old
Kenneth
Navy.
Cole.
Where else did you say?
Kenneth Cole.
Kenneth Cole. You can go to Kenneth Cole. Okay, you got it. So that's your challenge, is to be on the next Starfleet Boy with a Rios look. So I put it out there for you. The audience is gonna hold you accountable to this.
The Star Trek costuming challenge.
So if we were still doing our summary, which we're clearly now, it was Jean-Luc Picard.
I'm kind of just hoping Q shows up just because I love Q, but I don't know if it's going to be John Delancey or not. I hope it is.
It's definitely going to be John Delancey, and I'm going to prove it to you very soon.
And I hope he comes in as like that mariachi band that he was once. The show just descends into chaos.
I would love to see it. To see Q come back. Some more stuff I saw on the internet. Interesting stuff is like some people were speculating that like Kid Q or Janeway and Q's son could come back and like he could be a character as well, and some people were like cool with that.
Well, there are other Qs, so they can bring back the kind of character, but
I would love to see Corbin Benson Q come back. That's one of my all-time favorites is Corbin Benson
Q. Just checking. I love that episode. I love Q. Janet's not a fan of Q, but I'm a big fan of Q.
Oh, good, good. Well, I am a huge fan of Q. Also, from the start, I loved Q. Um, this show kind of freaks me out because I feel like this episode was also like it gave me personally like Twilight Zone vibes because the idea of Maddox just trips me out. Like I really don't know if he's like because he's not in Starfleet anymore. So he's also all these people are banished from Star. It's really strange. Like Maddox had a career. He was in a uniform. He was in a science uniform. He had a career. He was Commander Maddox, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes to the Daystrom Institute, but that doesn't really necessarily mean you have to be a civilian. You could still be a Starfleet
Right.
officer, right? And he may have been, and he was responsible for creating the synths. And then all of a sudden, those synths attack Mars, and so now he is the villain, and he's trying to prove his innocence, I guess. But there's a lot of weird things. Like, what's the angle here? Like, like I'm just trying to like figure it out, but it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. Anyways,
I think Kurtzman is trying to figure it out too.
They have. Well, he watches this show. We think there's no direct telemetry on YouTube. It doesn't tell you like Alex Kurtzman is watching, but like I think a lot of a lot of the stuff that we talk about on Starfleet Point just somehow ends up. No, I'm just kidding. That was total lie. I was trying to be like Elnor lying, but I couldn't be like I couldn't do it. I couldn't create a character.
A whole episode to get the elf, and the next episode he does nothing. He's just comic relief.
What are you talking about? Elnor was great in this episode. I thought it was a good way to sideline a character so that, but like by keeping him in the game, and like we still learned a little bit about his character. I liked it. I liked his participation.
And the Raffi
side
quest
he got the guns in his hands. Yeah, we didn't even talk about that, but like, and I love that you called it a side quest because it's great that way. But going back to Eldor for a second, I don't know if you felt this way, but when he takes the guns from Meridiana Troy's troops, I felt safe all of a sudden. I felt like this guy knows gun kata. Like,
does he? Sure. We haven't seen him use a gun, only a sword.
It's okay. It's assumed that he knows gun kata. I mean, if he's great on a sword, like that's the thing is like a samurai doesn't need a sword. He could use like a bamboo stick and have the same like outcome. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's what these warrior nuns are like. It's like they could use pots and pans and have the same outcome as with a sword or a blaster. Like it doesn't matter. They're just like bending like reeds and like you know what I mean. So I don't know. I feel confident. I felt confident that when he had those guns, I was like, no one could survive if they tried to attack Jean-Luc. He would just be like, no hesitation, like pew 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 pew, pew like instantly knock every single.
I have no faith in him because who did he train against? What has he done already? He's basically
the most powerful enemy of the Tal Shiar. Did you remember like Jean-Luc is like they are the most powerful adversary of the Tal Shiar.
The nuns.
Yeah, he's a nun. He's trained like the nuns. They said
I know, but who has he actually fought? What has he actually done? He's just trained.
His first fight ends in the decapitation of a former Romulan senator and knocking out 3 other like thugs with like a single rotating a single kowtow, like Olympic flip. And then he just like says, "I'm sorry you chose to die." And he's like badass his first time
against a stationary target that didn't know he was there. So basically a training dummy. He chopped the head off a training dummy.
Hey, I can defend Eldor all night. So if you want to go on an Eldor journey, we could go. But I will just say this. Like because he's so like kind of naive, or he comes across that way, most people just ignore him, and so they don't even know that the gun is on.
I'll give you that.
You like that?
Yeah, I actually
Oh,
do like
yes.
that. Okay,
Watch
I like that.
yourself, people. Yes, so he's already got, like, the plan. Like, he as soon as Eldor walks in the room, he just figures out how to kill every single human or person, I should say, in that room. He's like, "If everyone's a target against Picard, I'm going to destroy this whole room." But no one suspects me
I
because I'm
wish you played
adorable and
Eleanor.
innocent.
I wish you played him with that voice.
I tell you, Eldor is my dream. He's like my dream character. He's like I think Seven of Nine falls in an interesting category among, if you take all the different Star Trek shows, you have Odo, who's got extraordinary abilities and is good in a fight. You have Data, who has extraordinary abilities and is good in a fight. Worf, you had two on TNG, it was great crew. You had Spock in the original series, who was a strong man, even though he was also very like sensitive and wonderful. But he could like bend a fucking metal, or he like smashes that computer the one time, and he smashes it like it's paper, like it's like
Good,
nothing.
probably was.
One of my favorite gifts. But by the way, one of my favorite gifts to use when I'm having a tantrum online. It's just it's like the best gift. And then who else? We already talked about DS9, and on Voyager, I think Seven of Nine kind of fits that bill later on, and maybe not Chakotay, but did we have any other extraordinary characters with abilities like that other than Seven of Nine?
On Voyager, no. I mean,
We didn't
Belano
start
was
out with
just,
someone like that, I guess.
and before
Oh,
her,
I guess Khan had Klingon strength.
well, Kes had the psychic abilities.
Oh, that's right. So Kess is another character that would fall in that category. So someone with an ability, an extraordinary ability, and Elnor certainly
And
is that
Tuvok.
character.
Tuvok had a lot of psychic power.
Tuvok. Oh,
Yeah,
and Vulcans are super strong. So yeah, like all the crews, there's always that. What do you call that in role playing? Is it a paladin? No, right? Like, or what would that be? Like a strong man, I guess. Yeah, a strong person.
Like a barbarian.
Deus Ex Barbarian, Deus Ex Machina. Although one wouldn't call Data a barbarian, perhaps, but who knows?
No, I mean, Worf would be like a fighter. Data would be like a paladin because it's very pure-hearted.
Right.
Whereas Worf,
Rafi kind of serves that. Rafi kind of falls in that kind of other category of characters. Like, I think that like in the original series, I think like Scotty had a drinking problem, and that's the closest. Like, yeah, if you have to find, I know it's hard for you to find flaws with those characters because you love them so much. Like, but if you think about it, Scotty has a drinking problem. Chekhov perhaps is overconfident. Sulu seems to be like kind of broody, and like he never really like seems fully satisfied. The Excelsior is all I can think about. I'm stuck on this goddamn ship with this egomaniac captain.
that's all Sulu ever thought about.
Sulu jumped from a helmsman to a captain overnight, it seems.
And yet, poor Harry Kim never got a promotion on Voyager.
Is that a real thing? He stays the ensign the whole show?
Ensign the whole time, yeah.
Does Voyager ever explain that? Is there ever an explanation?
I don't think so.
Does anyone know?
He becomes the night captain.
Terrible.
Like, he becomes the night captain, where he's basically the night shift captain, but then he's also the ensign still during the day shift. So it's like, what does he doesn't get to sleep now? It's like either you sleep or you get a turn at being captain. But yeah, he never gets a promotion. In the meantime, Tom Paris, who was only there as an observer because he was in jail, became like a lieutenant commander, like for overnight. And and B'Elanna Torres became chief engineer. Huh?
But I think Voyager was a fucked up situation because she didn't. It was going to take 70 years to get home. So she had to just like make decisions. Like, she's like, these people are never going to see their families. They're never going to have careers. I need to like get them home. They'll be grateful when they're old that I didn't promote them or whatever. That I didn't.
Well, it's like the other problem is like, it's kind of like you know, if you don't leave your job for a better job, you're only going to get promoted if somebody ahead of you leaves. So on Voyager, where you can't make everybody lieutenant commander, you know.
Yeah, he can do it. Harry Kim deserved a lieutenant commander. Like,
Well, I think my biggest
what
gripe,
can I
my
say?
biggest gripe with
He
Voyager
deserved like
was
a.
it wasn't a whatchamacallit serialized like shows now. It should have been. It should have been more like Deep Space Nine in that sense, and been more kind of ongoing.
This show is a lot more like Deep Space Nine. I feel like there's mega if Deep Space Nine was made, a little bit later, or if like not at the same hour, it might have gone into grittier directions, such as this show does. I feel like.
Uh, no, no, because it was on regular TV back then. You know what I mean? You can't now. They can get away with it because it's on a pay service.
Do you think that like would you be happy if the next showrunner for Star Trek Picard was like Ira Stephen Bear, or like Brandon Braga, or like um let's say, who else would be a good one? Oh, Ron Moore, of course. Like, would you be happy if like one of those three, or
I
even
mean,
Narendra
if one of
Pal?
those were producing the next show, not Picard, and a whole new show, not related to Picard, that happens 50
Oh,
years
you're
after
done with
Picard.
Picard? You're really like that done?
I don't.
You're really
Yeah.
that done with Picard? It's so
I
sad.
mean,
Wow.
like I told you before, if it was any other show that was not Picard, if it wasn't for Patrick Stewart, I would have stopped watching it by now. It's not interesting to me. It's generic sci-fi.
This is the part where I think I'm an android and you're saying the trigger words to activate me. Like you're like, oh, I'll just tell him I hate Picard. It'll activate him. He'll go nuts on
All you
screen.
heard right now was "I hate Picard."
And I'm like,
Targeting.
How did we get so opposite? It's so sad to hear you say things
It's
like
just this one show because we both love The Expanse.
that. Did you like? Oh my God. Did you like the editing in the scene where the setup is happening at the same time as the
No,
job?
no,
I loved it. I loved it. I
no.
thought it was great.
It's
So
just
you're disappointed at Jonathan Frakes. You're saying
no.
Jonathan Frakes
I
is
wrote
really
down
good
as
as
a
a
director,
director?
he's great. Keep bringing him back. He's the best director so far of
Okay.
the series. But the editor, like, stop giving him cocaine because he's just going all over the place. He's like, let me just throw in this crazy Ocean's
We
11
never
style
found
editing
out.
for 2 seconds.
We never found out who the editor of Star Trek Picard is, but I fundamentally disagree with you. So we'll have to find out who that person is and see. Have you looked it
And I
up? Do you
hate
know
saying
what
that
he's
because
done?
I don't like saying that either because, like I always say, it's like you don't know what he had to work with. You don't know what footage was actually shot. So maybe he got crappy footage. So maybe it is Jonathan Frakes' fault.
But then you blame Jonathan. But then you,
No, yeah, right. So,
yeah, I was gonna say, then you have
I
to
don't
blame
like making
Jonathan
those
Frakes
critiques
for it
in this sense because it's hard to.
because you love Jonathan Frakes too much. It's hard to critique Jonathan Frakes because you adore that man.
My
I see
dog is
where this
named after
is.
him.
I see where this is. Okay, so that's the line was drawn here. No further. So Jonathan Frakes it remains protected. So it's everyone else's fault if the
It's
show
everybody else. It's
goes
everybody.
bad. We
Um,
can protect Jonathan Frakes and Patrick Stewart, but everyone else is at risk. But everyone else is at risk on Star Trek Picard. That was one of the things that I noted in my notes. Is that for me, I found it to be really disturbing that anyone can die now. Maddox is like I consider Maddox like an icon character, and they just killed him. A lot of people think that aside from whatever actor plays Icheb, that he was an iconic character with a lot of hope, and like the way he ended was just like a betrayal to like how they thought this character would play out. So controversial as all heck because they're just like, oh, we'll kill anybody. Like, I'm afraid now. I joked about this. I thought I was serious, but I wasn't. But now I'm afraid. What if they would kill Jordy, or like, then I would lose my shit. I think I would if any of the seven go, I would lose my shit.
Seven shoots him and he
And then I
explodes
would go.
except for his visor and it falls. Ding, ding, ding.
No, no, no. Protect Jody. Protect them all. I had a weird thought that I wrote a note about, which is Maddox mentions that when he credits the success of Dodge and Soji as androids, as the next step in androids in cybernetics, he says Soong and me and you, Aggie, right? And I don't know why he would credit
We did
Soong.
it.
He never.
He says we
What's
did
that?
it. He says we did it.
Right. We did it. And so
Did
yeah, so there's like a
did what?
is it possible? Well, so we've talked about this before. Uh, so um, what's Data's mom's name? What's her name? Is it
Um,
Johanna Soong is what comes to mind, but I know it's not that.
I can't remember. Yeah.
So what the Soong hologram describes to Data is that he was able to, as she was in a coma, he was able to record her synaptic pattern, digitize it, and then create a positronic version of that. And when she woke up, she had no idea she was an android. Her consciousness was uninterrupted from the moment she last remembered being conscious to the moment she woke up. And so she thought she was a human. So he had reached perfection in a sense, right?
Hmm.
I wonder if either there's a Soong hologram available somehow, like an accessible like version of Soong which Brent Spiner could play, and that would be brilliant in my eyes, right? Or even a Soong type Soong android, like a Noonien Soong android. Like he just created one for himself and decided, I don't need to die. I can just continue on as an android. I have data that I can visit from time to time if I want to. Like
They
I can
the
do whatever I want.
and they tell you when they reveal that it starts off in that episode where Data or Soon dies, and Data's like holding him, and then whatever they replay the scene, but then right after he opens one eye. Is he gone? Ah. He sneaks over and downloads his positronic brain into the new.
And then Brent Spiner wakes up as himself. It's like a great way to like play that character, I think. In fact, I'm making an official Starfleet Boy prediction that Brent Spiner will at some point perhaps reprise his role as Noonien Soong, but in a way that we didn't expect before, because he's already perfected the technology from Johannes. So what if he did get into cahoots with Maddox to create Soji and Dodge, and what if that android's still
I
out
just
there
don't
somewhere?
even understand what Zoji and Dodge are. If they're pure,
They're reconnaissance droids.
but if they're droids,
From
are they droids or are
not
they
droids,
humans?
androids, but you know,
Yeah, I know. Are they droids or are they humans? I'm a droid and
they're
you're
synthetic life
annoyed.
forms. You're annoyed. There's Joe Piscopo, great
But
reference.
they're synthetic
They
life
are
forms that
synthetic
can't
life
be
forms.
detected by doctors who created her mom.
I'll just remind you that
Why did you create the mom?
her mom. Wait, but hang on. So I'll explain that part from what I understand. But regarding Soji's like humanness and not being able to be detectable, Soong's wife also could not be detected. She had devices that could fool any.
Right, but
What's that?
right. But you presume that Soji at some point went to get a medical checkup,
Well,
and
she
they
has
tried
a.
to inject her, and
She's
it
a
was
new
like
type of
dink.
android.
Or there's a line I think the mag
So
says that they're
this is.
programmed to activate when they're in danger. So like,
I think that Maddox was able to do something new in cybernetics. She's an android because what is her is positronic. The brain of her brain itself is a positronic brain, right? But imagine growing a clone of someone, just as an example, which Star Trek you could do easily. Like we get a lot of cloning in Star Trek. Remember that whole cloning
Right, right,
civilization? Imagine growing a clone that has no brain. Like you genetically engineer it to not have a brain, and you could just slip this positronic brain into that clone and activate it, and it interfaces with all the biological
right,
uh
right. I feel you, and that's
features.
why I think that I mean, if they were smart, they could include the nanoprobes from Seven of Nine. That brain could
Right,
maybe pump out nanoprobes that enhance the muscles, enhance the speed, so that you could be more than just human. But she's still kind of human.
right,
All right,
right.
all right, fair enough. I still don't understand why Maddox creates them, and has them dating
I
and
don't either. We'll see.
and whatever. But whatever, it doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter.
Maddox is fucked up, man. I
It's
think
like,
he's a
whose
fucked up
eyes are you gonna
guy.
rip
I
out
think
next
that's
week?
the character we missed. I think we misread him, or like forgot conveniently, just like Rios forgot that Jean-Luc was once a Borg. I think we forgot as the audience that Maddox was a suspicious character from the start. That like no one liked that character when he
Right.
debuted on Measure of a Man. I think it was unanimous that you felt like this is a person, and then later you find out that Data's friends with him, but Data doesn't have good judgment. He's like Elnor in that sense of like, innocence. Like Data really is not a good judge of characters. Like how many times has he fallen for like the guy who keeps him as like his one of his trophies,
Yeah.
like he easily falls prey to things. Like
Reverse,
later Data is a
reverse
little more
something.
cynical, perhaps. Yeah, that guy who
Yeah.
like Data was Data snaps. He was about to kill him. He was like,
What did you think of the advertisements, the personalized advertisements that each person got?
I loved it, and I forgot to write down the name of. I like that we. It was a good way to get the class of because the red Bolian character that was talking to Rios says
Uh-huh.
the exact model and class
You
of what
fix it.
La Fortuna is, and he says that it's a speed freighter.
Oh,
So it's a freighter.
warehouse class.
It's the warehouse class. I love it. It is. It's so true.
It's terrible, terrible design.
Okay.
Terrible.
No, I would design an interior like
It's
that.
so
I wouldn't
visually
actually.
uninteresting.
No, it's not. Are you kidding? How could you say that? It reminds me of a Martian ship in The Expanse.
When he wears that black shirt with the thing, he basically blends in with parts of the background. It's so bad.
See, you're not watching it. You're not watching it in 6K like I am. To me, it's like I'm I'm inside La Serena. When I watch it, I'm actually in
You're
it.
like in VR.
Like,
That would be neat.
I'll tell you one thing. If you do give Star Trek Discovery a chance, there's a scene where in season 2, the opening episode, the very first episode, there's a scene where something happens and they're flying through asteroids. I highly recommend that you watch it on your phone in one of those Google
Yeah, those
VR
head.
things. And I recommend that you do it. Audience, I don't know how you feel about this, but I recommend that you're high when you do this, Ruben,
I don't do that kind of stuff.
and then just watch that. Oh, sorry. Why? Because it freaks you out. Does it freak you out?
No, I just don't do drugs.
Oh, okay. Sorry. We're lying now, right? I'm like Elnor. I'm like, oh my god, we're lying.
Are we still lying?
Are we still lying? Have we stopped? I think we've stopped pretending. I have. Oh my god! I didn't wear my beret. I was supposed to do. I tried to do a gag or a gimmick during every episode. I'll do it on the Saturday edition. I'll wear my gag. I'll do my gag on the Saturday edition of Starfleet Boy.
I liked
think that
Rios's HUD, the HUD display that like followed his eyes. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah,
That was
I
pretty
did notice
cool.
that.
I was like, oh,
I just want that ship. I think it's the Honda Civic. It's the Honda Civic of Starship. 100%. I feel like it's the Honda Civic
The
of
Civic of
Starship. I
Starships.
love. Have you ever driven a Honda Civic? This is a unsolicited endorsement for Honda Civics. We're not being paid to say this. But have you ever been in a Honda Civic?
Yeah.
It feels like La Serena. Now when I go to work, I turn on the music, and I feel like it's La Serena. All right, let me ask you. So I got emotional in this part. You know the part before when 709 pretends to promise not to kill anymore. She's like talking to Picard about her humanity, which that part's real. I do believe she is trying to get back to her humanity. She's just got a like fucked up life, but they played the Voyager theme when she says every goddamn day, and I ate it up. I was like, ah, da, 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 ba, 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 ba. I don't own the Voyager, so I'm gonna use the I'm gonna use the Pasteur. Bum, 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 bum. All right, so I wanted to get that in to the conversation. I love that scene. Uh, do you think that so you said in the beginning of the show that that's not 7 of 9. What did you want for 7 of 9 instead?
Well, I just feel
You
like
said Jerry Ryan did a great job.
I. It's not that she did a good or a bad job. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know if again if the character it is 20 years. The character's been doing stuff for 13 years or whatever it is, 20 years since Voyage or whatever. So it kind of makes sense that she'd become more and more a normal, non-Borgish, let's say, because she's much more
Right.
Borgish
Or
still.
that she would emulate humans
Right.
or emulate like humanoids. I want to say humanoids from now on. I think it's very racist to say humans because I'm just focusing on people from Earth, like the indigenous peoples of Earth, right? So human she wants to be humanoid, like she
Right.
wants to get back in touch with and she
And then
so
yeah, if
I
she's
didn't
been
know
part
this
of this
about
like
her.
renegade
Right?
or this like kind of mercenary group or whatever the hell Fenris Rangers are.
The Fenris Rangers, which that's what the so isn't that cool? I think if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly from history class, you had Romulus and Remus, and they were born, and they were suckled. Their parents were lost, and they were suckled to manhood by a she wolf named Fenris. So Fenris is the she wolf that like created the gods, the ancient Romulus and Remus in human mythology. And so it's cool that there's Romulus, Remus, and a planet called Fenris now because she says we're from the planet Fenris. So the Romulans are even more awesome now because I want to know what the Fenris Romulans were like. Those guys were that's a new level or a new depth to Romulans that I never thought of, but it makes sense because if you stick true to history, then Fenris would be a logical name for another planet.
Right.
Wow, I'm making you smile with my Trek facts.
Check facts.
You're Trek facts. They're not actually facts. I don't know. I can't attest. It's stuff in my brain. I don't know where it came from, audience. Sometimes it's from real sources, and sometimes it's made up.
Well, no, you're like you're like Soji. You're using your positronic brain, but
I
you
have
don't know
fake
it.
knowledge. I I don't know it.
Destroyer,
In the galactic
destroyer.
no, not little old me. In the I do believe that Soji could be the destroyer though. But in the Galactic Heroes, our shared mythology from high school, I was the robot character. I guess I must have come off as robotic to the author of that story.
I hope that doesn't mean there's some sort of penguin
But,
character coming, because I was the penguin.
I think if I had to translate the Galactic Heroes to Star Trek Picard, I would probably think
Please
that
don't.
you would
Watch this be the one episode Chris
you
would
want me to
actually
convert
just
you to
watch.
Picard?
And he's like, that's a great idea. A penguin in Star Trek Picard.
The penguin.
A 4 foot tall penguin who tells jokes.
I think I would have put you on the piano in this episode playing the
With my little penguin flippers.
I would have had you with your fin with your fins.
Ah!
There's a character in our shared mythology called the Empress who I'm dying to get on the show, and I don't know if she listens or at all, but Musaka is the episode that I want to do with her. So we'll see if we can win that.
Musaka is ready.
And speaking of Musaka, I think we're ready to rate this episode.
Wait, I have a couple more things I want to bring up. I just questions, like mostly.
Oh,
not really complaints.
Okay.
I just want to understand the EMH. He can clearly activate himself, but then every time she deactivates him, he can't come back. Like,
I think that's Rios's fault. I think he created that algorithm in his EMH programs because he does it all the time. Like he can send them away, but they have I think the reason he wants them to be autonomous to a degree is that he's alone on the ship, so he needs it to be able to activate itself if there's a real emergency. So let's say Rios had too much aguardiente and was smoking too hard,
and spent way too much at Kenneth Cole that day.
That day,
he comes
and he passes out. He wants his
like 10
EMH
bags.
to be able to he wants his EMH to be able to activate to help him if he sees a heart attack happening or whatever might be happening. It can be anything with Rios. That guy's crazy. But he wants to be able to send them away. And then maybe there's a time lapse, like maybe an hour or 30 minutes before they can act, which, he could be screwed anyway.
Or a cool down period.
I think that's how right. So I think that's how he built that system. And so she's smart as fuck. So she's taking advantage of it. She already saw right through that. She's the premier Federation cyberneticist. And I'm like dripping nasal from my nose.
Who's scared of using the transporter?
Oh, she doesn't use the transporter?
No, she was scared of beaming them back up, remember? She was all like, oh, transporter, oh my god, this ancient this technology is so hard to use.
I think she was... After knowing the ending, I think she was genuinely freaking out that she was going to have to kill Maddox. Now, what do you I have a question for you, because you're a good predictor of predictable, lazy writing. So what do you think she saw? What do you think that Sunglasses Romulan Commodore showed her that would make her kill the love of her life, seemingly, and want to atone for some sort of sin in helping to create these abominations? She's totally convinced that some evil has occurred and that she has to correct it. Because I do think that Agnes Girardi was not. She's either brainwashed or what is going on? What do you think what could she have been shown in your knowledge of Star Trek universe and what's going on so far? What do you think is going on there?
I mean, I don't know because we don't really know much about her. We don't know if she has family outside. Right? We just found out in this episode that she even had a thing with Maddox, right? Or did we learn that last week? No, it was just this episode, right?
Are you talking about Girardi?
Yeah.
I'm talking about Girardi.
Yeah.
Girardi doesn't have a kid.
No, that's what I'm saying. We don't know anything about her, if she has family of any kind that maybe they used to blackmail her.
Oh, okay.
And kind of said, "Look here, we have your niece hostage. So you do when you get Maddox, you kill him or else."
Who are they? Do we know? Do you have any ideas who they are?
Section 31. Because Alex Kurtzman loves Section 31.
Section 31 never.
No.
Would you be surprised if Section 31 doesn't even come into it at all?
Yes, I would be very surprised. But I think it's some sort of. I mean, I don't know. I want to say it's some sort of group. I actually don't even might think it's not Section 31 because I think that like it might be a a group made up of Romulans and humans
There was a
who kind of want
conclave
to
of
take
eight.
down
Did you hear
both.
that reference?
The what?
When Rafi goes to visit her son who hates the F out of her, he starts spouting her conspiracy theories back at her, and one of the ones he mentions is called the Conclave of Eight, and that's kind of suspicious sounding. Like that kind of
Right,
sounds like it could be that group that you were talking about.
right. So I'm hoping it's not Section 31. Like let's like just leave that alone. It's not the only nefarious group,
Did
and
you like? Did you like
I loved it on
Section
DS9.
31
Yeah,
comes up in Deep Space Nine,
yeah.
and then they don't come back till Enterprise? Is that right?
Are they on Enterprise? Yeah, they're on Enterprise, and then Discovery. There's two, right?
Yes, Discovery has. Does Voyager ever
And the
get Section
movies,
31?
I believe.
Oh, they're in the movies too.
Yeah,
Okay, I see what you're saying.
yeah. So Alex Kurtzman really
But
loves
TNG
Section 30.
is free. TNG is free of Section 31. They don't even come up in
Yeah,
the
they're never
film
mentioned there.
of TNG. But in the Apocrypha, Bashir goes on to lead Section 31. So that might be an interesting way to get Siddig. Alexander Siddig. I was going to say his original name, but Alexander Siddig, who I loved in. Did you ever watch Da Vinci's Demons? Did you hate that show?
No,
I
I
love
never.
that
I
show.
didn't watch it. But he was also in a couple episodes of Game of Thrones too.
Right, he's great in Game of Thrones, but he played a mystic kind of warrior in Da Vinci's Demons, and he's great. He's great in that show. I almost said movie. But yeah, I would love to see Alexander Siddig reprise his role as Dr. Bashir. I think that would be great.
That'd be neat.
All right, so any more
Right?
questions or comments or concerns on your list there?
No. For another time, perhaps. But
Wow.
rating time.
So and obviously my rating is a 10. So we'll just get that out of the way. All right, let's hear what some would call the true rating of this episode. So let's hear the true rating, Ruben.
No, I gave it a 5. It's just average.
Oh, cool. Did that 5 go up not even a little bit from our conversation? Just a little bit? 5? Like a 5?
Originally, I was going to give it a 4, but then I started thinking about it. I was like, maybe a 4.5. And I said, well, it's not bad. There's nothing bad about it. It's just not Star Trek, and that's more of a personal thing than anything. So I just gave it a 5. Especially after watching The Expanse, starting to watch Expanse. It's just night and day. At least 7 of 9 didn't drop an F-bomb. She came and I went, and she did not drop an F-bomb.
Picard has not dropped an F-bomb either. Just so you know.
No.
I think he will, though, before the season ends. And when he says it, it's going to be like, no fuck you've ever heard in your life. Fuck! You know, like he's going to...
There are 4 fucks!
In fact, it will trigger the quickening. Like something from another show altogether will happen when he says it. Like all of a sudden, the quickening will occur. Everyone's head will explode.
He becomes the Picard supernova.
Like, you thought that was the supernova? Fuck!
Yeah. Oh, my last comment is enough with the lens flares, please. Enough with the lens flares. For the love of creatures big and small.
I love them.
Enough.
For me, when I watch it at 3 a.m, those lens flares are like honey gold dripping into my mouth. They're like They're like dream gold is what I call it. It's like gold that's laced with dreams, what dreams are made of, and every drop of it just like helps me to rejuvenate and live longer. It's like, it's like it's exactly what I need. It's the nourishment I look for. It's every morning. I'm just like every Thursday morning. I'm like Jean Luc, Jean Luc, give me your golden, beautiful dream material. Is that too graphic? Do you think? You think
No,
I have to like cut that out?
you're still less graphic than ripping a guy's eye out.
It's true. I will agree with you on that one. So I just want to make a comment that I I was watching it with my sister and my mom, and that was too much. Like I couldn't even watch it the second time around, and my mom was horrified. She's like, "This is Star Trek." Like she actually said, "This is Star Trek." Like she screamed it, kind of like, and I was like shocked because I loved it. I'm like ready for everything. I'm like I'm like Kylo Star Trek Kylo Ren. I'm like kill the past if you have to. Like kill Ikeb and Maddox if you have
Kill
to.
them all. I hope Jordy's next.
I had that. I had a dark scenario early on in my speculation when they first announced Picard. You were not on the show at this time, but I had a dark speculation. I said that I had a way dark. So that's why I'm so happy because it's not as dark as my dark speculation was. My imaginings told me that the Enterprise and so Picard was leading this rescue armada and it had to be done like relatively quickly, right? And the Enterprise and the Titan too, they're like first in last out, first in last out. Like they're never the ship that leaves first. They're always the one that's like, we could save 3 more people. Like that's how Riker is. That's how
Right,
like Geordi, all of them. They're all like that person, right?
right.
But Picard is forced to be on the Verity, which we know that he was on, and it's at the head of the fleet because he has to command it. Like he has to of course he has to be at the head of the fleet. He has to logistics. He's responsible for the logistics of the entire thing, right? But the Hobus Nebula supernovas earlier than they expected, and the Enterprise and the Titan don't make it. Like they legit get destroyed, and Picard loses everyone. That's where I started my Star Trek Picard.
That'll be the next flashback, and
That was horrible.
they'll slowly show Riker burning on the bridge
Yeah.
of the Enterprise. Jordy being like eviscerated.
So my version of Picard. So my version of Picard had their whole stories being told in flashbacks, and Picard going insane and having no one familiar around him. So mine was way darker. But I'm glad so that's why I'm so glad it's turning out the way it is, because now it's like fulfilling my other fantasy which is to open the show with everyone, just show everyone in a great gigantic shot of like, here's everyone
all looking up at a giant beam that's about to destroy the planet. A whole hour of deaths, every character getting a minute and a half of screen time dying.
Oh
And then Alex Kurtzman's face.
All right. Oh my god, this is the weirdest episode of Starfleet Boy we've ever done. I would say this was the horror episode of Starfleet Boy. We successfully did it. We're matching the card ounce for ounce every week. We do an exact mirror of the episode. The episode's big theme. So we just did our the horror episode. Dun, dun, dun. All right. We did it. So what do you have to promote this week?
Nothing. Just working on scripts. Well, next Tuesday, if you're in Miami, Naked Angels, they'll be reading one of my scripts.
Naked Angels.
Yes, aka Tuesdays at 9.
Angel in the bar. Oh, I have to give a shout out. You reminded me. Naked Angel. You would say that Stardust City is like Las Vegas, right? Well,
It was cool.
A huge shout out to Las Vegas, and especially Faces and Aces LV, Chris, who does a podcast about Las Vegas that I've been on. So I'm excited. I don't think the episode's out yet, but but I had the pleasure of being on that podcast. And
It's a very cool
they
city.
are a sister podcast. They are a sister podcast in the Podern family with Drunk Space Nine. So more about that on Drunk Space Nine. So shout out to you guys. I already popped my cherry for the night, so I don't have any other cherries to pop. So anything else you promoting there, The Martian?
No, that's all I got.
Ruben writes. Ruben Dash writes.
.com.
Is Ruben Dash writes up yet?
No.
Ruben. What is it called? Ruben Dash writes.
.com.
Ruben Dash writes.com, right?
.com. Yeah.
What did I say?
You said it right. Ruben Dash
Oh,
writes.
the delay is so crazy. Watch this. Ready? I'm gonna tell you when I. You're gonna acknowledge when you hear me. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you hear me? Oh, it's not that bad. I'm just crazy. Audience, my drink probably got me crazy.
It was reminding me of a sequence. Have you watched Avenue 5 on HBO? Yeah, you've watched it, right? You've watched an episode too.
I only saw the first episode, but I'm dying to keep watching it.
Did they have the little gimmick with the delay from NASA or whatever to the ship?
That's what's happening right now. You'll see when I do the video. You're gonna see that you're like 100% delayed. That it's an Avenue 5 moment. But you know what? Starfleet Boy is riddled with with technical difficulties. But I think we got through it. I understood you pretty clearly.
Yeah. I don't think it was too bad. Hopefully.
And I think that
hopefully I look like a Chinese movie.
You'll let us know. Audience, you'll let us know in the comments below what you thought of this episode of Starfleet Boy. Did you think we were kid friendly before, and did you now understand that Starfleet Boy is not a kid friendly show? It is rated PG-13, which in the United States we think is the correct age to get kids started on violence like that's shown in this episode. So if your kid is 13, but you still can't just plop them in front of the television or the YouTube in this case and let them watch shows like Starfleet Boy, you got to talk to them about it. So you got to let them know, when Starfleet Boy mentioned that spiky dildo, what he's talking about and what it means. So that's how it works.
You got to beam up to Starfleet Boy.
And I would still... It's true. And I would still check in with my 18-year-old. Are you okay? Are you traumatized from Starfleet Boy? Son? Child? Forever child? All right. The Martian, live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Hold on true. That's probably the best thing that came out of Star Trek Picard.
Oh my gosh. You're so terrible. You get the final word, though. It's fine.
No.
Saturday, I'll have my revenge.